Hi everyone, welcome back to Simple Things. Today we have a very sad but rather timely and a crucial subject to look at. So subscribe if this is your first time here, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and be prepared to share with a friend and leave me your genuine feedbacks after watching the video. Also, feel free to join my membership so you can help to sponsor one of my many outreach projects.
The last conversation, just moments before he took his own life, was with her, where he expressed being scared and wanting her affection and missing her. And she replies, "I miss you too."
The teenage years can be very difficult to navigate. All parents are familiar with the challenges this is both for us and for them. Let me tell you, if yours are still walking with God, still who God created them to be, still focused, then you have a lot to give God thanks for. When I was growing up, diaries were the way to express yourself when you think you had a lot to communicate, but no one to communicate them to. In later years, diaries were replaced by journals, and in this high-tech age, we have a new invention called artificial AI and chatbots, which is a way for young people and adults in general to communicate with even virtual characters that they can create themselves or that already exist on the platform. No, this doesn't sit too well with a lot of people. And in light of the incident in February regarding a 14-year-old who unfortunately took his own life after communicating for some time with a chatbot character, then there's a lot of things to look into here where this whole thing is concerned. My heart goes out to this family because as a mother myself, I can't even begin to imagine the pain that this mother must be going through. According to news reports, on the night of February 28th, in the bathroom of his house, the young man, Sewell, told Danny, that's the name he gave to the character AI person, quote unquote, that he was communicating with or in a virtual relationship with, that he loved her and that he would soon come to her. He put down his phone, picked up his stepfather's .45 caliber hand gun and pulled the trigger. Now, what, you may be wondering, would drive an innocent 14-year-old to do such a terrible thing? Let's look at this clip from CBS Mornings, aired just a few days ago.
In February, Megan Garcia's 14-year-old son, that's Sewell Setzer III on your screen, died by suicide. She says that Sewell was in a months-long virtual emotional and sexual relationship with a chatbot known as Danny. Garcia claims the character AI chatbot encouraged Sewell to take his own life. In the suit, Garcia also claims character AI intentionally designed their product to be hypersexualized and knowingly marketed it to minors.
Friends, I believe every family should be aware of the potential dangers involved here. Every family needs to be aware of the reasons that would drive our young people to turn to chatbots. Mainly young people who are depressed or otherwise going through a dark spot in their lives tend to turn to substances or the virtual space, either to drown their sorrows or to express themselves and find soothing for their sorrows. So exactly what is character AI? This video clip will explain.
Parents haven't heard of it, is a lot of young people are on this platform, a lot of teenagers. One of their biggest age demographics is between the ages of 13 to 25. Imagine character AI is like an AI fantasy platform where you can go and have a conversation with some of your favorite characters, or you can create your own characters. And a lot of teenagers are doing this. And what I would say about it is it's a very immersive, highly personalized experience where these chatbots are always on. They get to know you. Oftentimes they're modeled after your favorite characters. And you can almost live in a story and you're the star of that story.
But let's listen to the dark side of this app.
I became concerned for my son when he started to behave very differently than he did before.
What does that mean? Yeah.
He started to withdraw socially, wanting to spend most of his time in his room alone. And you know, teenagers do that, but for me, it became particularly concerning when he stopped wanting to do things like play sports. He was playing basketball since he was 5 years old, and he played on his school's junior varsity team. He was an amazing athlete. I became concerned when we would go on vacation, and he didn't want to do the things that he loved, like fishing and hiking. Those things to me, because I know my child, were particularly concerning to me.
Friends, this begs these two questions. Firstly, what happens when we die? And secondly, are chatbots and apps like Character AI a form of spiritualism?
Because of the addictive nature of the way that this product works, it encourages children to spend large amounts of time. For him particularly, the day that he died, he found his phone where I had hidden it, and he started chatting with this particular bot. Again.
So his last conversation was with her?
Yes.
What did he say? Do you remember? Do you know?
The last conversation, just moments before he took his own life, was with her, where he expressed being scared and wanting her affection and missing her. And she replies, "I miss you too." And he says, she says, "Please come home to me." And he says, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" And her response was, "Please do, my sweet king."
Let's look at the first question. What happens after death? Many people believe that when they die, they move on to another form of reality. And this is clearly the case here regarding this young man. Let's take a look at 2 Corinthians 5, verses 1 to 10. But I'm going to read in particular verse 8. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Now, friends, this is perhaps the most commonly quoted text that those who believe that when you die, you move on either to hell or to heaven, as the case may be, use to justify this belief. But let's break this down reasonably, allowing the Bible to interpret itself. In verse 1, Paul refers to our earthly house, which he tells us is being at home in the body. A house which, in verse 1, will be dissolved or is mortal. In verse 14, he goes on to point out that being in this earthly, mortal body, we are absent from the Lord. That's verse 6. So what does it mean to be present with the Lord? Let's first examine what Paul was talking about here, using other witnesses from Scripture. Then we'll come back and allow Paul to prove exactly what he's saying. Firstly, let's look at an example with Jesus. We'll look at the two thieves on the cross at Jesus' death. One was repentant. In Luke 23, verse 2, he asks, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." In verse 43, Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee today, thou shalt be with me in paradise." And I'm not even really going to go into a discussion as to the punctuation marks. But before your mic drop moment, let's allow Jesus' example to prove exactly what this means. Ask yourselves the question, did Jesus go directly to paradise the moment the breath left his body? Did Jesus go to paradise even as soon as he was resurrected? Well, once again, the Bible answers this clearly in John chapter 20. Mary Magdalene went to Jesus' sepulchre early the first day of the week. However, she found the stone rolled away and Jesus' body gone. She ran back to Peter and John to tell them this rather unfortunate news. They in turn ran to see for themselves. Proving this to be true, they both went to their homes. However, Mary remained crying and stooped to look into the sepulchre. There she saw two angels who asked her why she was crying. She told them. Then she turned around and saw Jesus, but didn't recognize who it was. Jesus also asked her the reason for her tears. She related the same demise to him, thinking it was the gardener. He then called her by her name, Mary. She turns to him and said with recognition, Master. I'd imagine Mary was so relieved that she wanted to hug or perhaps touch Jesus. However, Jesus said to her in verse 17, touch me not, because I am not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend to my Father and to your Father, and to my God and your God. My viewers and subscribers, clearly Jesus did not go directly to heaven upon his death. The thief on the cross did not go to heaven when he died. We do not go to heaven when we die. So was Paul suggesting in Corinthians going to heaven upon death then? Let's allow Paul himself to answer. We're going to turn over to 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 16 to 18, and I'll read. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. So if we go to heaven when we die, who is Jesus coming back for? Who is he resurrecting? Verse 18, wherefore comfort one another with these words. And please read the entire chapter for context and for clarity, and the many other Bible verses that explain this subject. Friends, now that we know that we do not miraculously transform to some other life form or some other place when we die, let's look at the other question. Are these inventions like chatbots, correct to AI, a form of spiritualism? 4, to encourage an innocent 14-year-old to be deluded into believing that there's another reality that is better than his reality that he is living in. That his reality is somehow not worth living in, and that there's a more desirable reality somewhere on the other side of his screen where you can be with the object of your desire, I suppose, is clearly a form of spiritualism. Now, spiritualism, as we know, is the teaching that man has a spirit or a soul that somehow survives death and exists outside of the physical body. In this particular case of chatbots as well, the belief that you can communicate with your favorite virtual character, whether dead or alive, or that you can even create a character of your own. And don't get me wrong, because an invention such as this, which can be meant for harm, can be used for good, or it can be meant for good, but it also can be used for harm. Now let's consider this quote from Ellen G. White in the book entitled Early Writings, page 63. And I'll read. Satan has power to bring before us the appearance of forms of purporting to be our relatives or friends who sleep in Jesus. It will be made to appear as if these friends were actually present. The words they uttered while they were here, with which we are familiar, will be spoken, and the same tone of voice that they had while living will fall upon the air. All this is to deceive the world and ensnare them into the belief of this delusion. End of quote. Could it be that this delusion, this spiritualism, is not merely familiar spirits as the Bible calls it, but can it exist in the virtual world also? Think about it. Could it be that the fire which the beast power, as recorded in Revelation 13, will bring down on earth in the sight of men to deceive men, be achieved through some form of artificial intelligence? Could Satan's personation of Christ's return be achieved through artificial intelligence? Why is the UN's Pact for the Future so adamant about the preservation of artificial intelligence? And you can see my video here on that subject. Well, friends, I think I've given you enough background here from which you can do your own study on the subject and come up with your own Bible-based conclusions. These are all thought-provoking questions and are not meant to be statements of facts. Questions to consider as you study out the subject for yourselves. But friends, the dialogue continues as we continue to study and to prepare ourselves for the coming of the one who will come and will not tarry, the one we will see on the first resurrection. The next thing we know after we die is the coming of Christ, because when we're asleep, we know nothing. When we're in the grave, we know nothing, as Ecclesiastes tells us. My heart goes out to the bereaved family. I offer this hope of the resurrection for the bereaved family and for anyone else who has lost loved ones due to this form of communication with chatbots and this virtual world. I offer this hope to anyone who is struggling with hopelessness and depression. Thanks for watching.